The following show and its content are the responsibility of the show's producers and participants.
Information related in this program is not meant to substitute medical recommendations. Before starting a treatment program, you should consult your physician.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
That's right. Welcome to the Couch Live here on the Problem Solving Network, WPSN99.com. Hello, everybody, on a beautiful Friday. Look at that. Why does it sound so low?
I don't know.
Sounds good at my.
Nope.
Sounds good for my house.
I'm sorry, Robbie. I didn't turn you up. Now you're
all right.
Now you're up.
Yeah, I can hear myself now.
I can hear you now, Robbie.
You must be HUD.
Yeah, well, I didn't really hear myself really well. Let me fix these levels. We were so busy doing the Up Live thing and all the behind-the-scenes stuff, Trinity.
We were cheating on Facebook Live and WPSN with Up Live.
Yeah, that I forgot to set all the levels right. Now I feel a lot better. There it goes. And I like turning my headphones on. Roll up. All right. So, anyway, let me introduce everybody. I'm the street-certified dope Dr. Louis Delgado, along here with you, Mel and my cast of friends, and there's my cast right there. That's Trinity Phillips, the Dharma guy. Hello,
What's
Trinity.
Up?
And for those watching this on the YouTube channel or something like that, or on Facebook Live, and right next to him is the Grasshopper, the intern. It's Robbie Barrett.
Hello, everybody.
Right on. Robbie, it's so good how often you come now.
Yeah, he graces us with his presence.
You're
it's
awesome.
good to be here.
It's always good to have you, Robbie.
Yeah.
We need to get you on Dharma time one of these days.
Yeah.
Definitely
It's a much better show with Robbie present. I just love his energy.
I thought you were saying it's a much, like you were saying Dharma Time's a much better show. I was like, oh, wow.
No.
Oh, no, you think
we're all equal in the family,
man. I think they're both great shows. I love doing both shows, to be honest with you. The difference is when we do Dharma Time, I don't ever show me on any of the video.
Huh. Is that hard for you?
No, I like it. No, I'm doing it.
Wow. Zing.
Wow, he zinged me.
Good job.
No, I actually do it on purpose. Even Trinity was saying, why aren't you getting this angle? And I kind of like it. I'm like that, it's like
you're just kind of the voice in the back.
the voice in the back. Yeah. You know, like that one show, the Tool Time show, where the guy was on the other side of the fence?
Yeah.
I don't think I know that one.
You don't know?
It was
Home
in the
Improvement?
90s, and he was
Home
born like at the
Improvement.
end of the 90s or something.
Oh, who was the?
Tim Allen was
Yeah.
the main character, and
He only knows him from
he
Santa
was
Claus
talking to the guy that was
movies.
behind the fence, and all you could see is like
The hat and the eyes.
the eyes and the hat.
Vague
Wow.
memory of that.
I feel really old right now.
Yeah.
Tim the Tool Man Taylor.
Right. You know who Led Zeppelin is, though, right?
Yes.
That's all that matters.
There you go.
Something like that. Because the day you don't know certain music stars, that's when I get frustrated with my kids or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, since birth, I've asked them the same questions every time a Zeppelin, AC/DC, Ozzy Osbourne song comes on, anything like that, anything that I feel is classic, Jimi Hendrix, I'll say, who is that? And if they get it wrong, I get frustrated. So they have to get those right. Those are musts. Anything beyond that, I don't really care.
I always feel the oldest though when I'm doing groups, and I try to make a reference, and I typically use the Matrix, and oftentimes, way too often, they're like, "What's that?"
Oh wow!
I'm like, "Are you serious? Do you know what the Matrix is?"
Oh,
No, I got better than that. New Jack City. I've always used that in my groups because
yeah.
I talk about Pookie,
Yeah.
Pookie and New Jack City. I said nobody cries while doing crack. At that moment, you're not crying. You actually made a decision at that point that you said, "I'm going to get high." You're not going, "I don't want to use" while you're using.
Right.
I said that's the only fiction part of that movie that's really highlighted, right? That Pookie, and everybody's like, "Who's Pookie?"
Oh gosh.
I'm like, "What? Chris
Well,
Rock?"
I can kind
Who's
of
Chris
understand
Rock? I'm like, "Whoa!"
No, that one would be.
Whoa!
That would be
They don't know who
crazy.
Chris Rock is, don't know who Pookie is, and don't know New Jack City. And New Jack City is where Snoop Dogg got his start as far as being on the record with Dre. That's when Dre put him out on the first album.
I could kind of understand and not knowing a New Jack City because it was a little bit older and it wasn't as a monumental film, Come on, The Matrix, that changed like movie making history. The bullet time and stuff, that changed everything.
It did change movie making.
And they,
I got to give it, even though I watched The Matrix probably 5 years after it came out.
Really?
Yeah, I wasn't.
Wow.
The actor in it just doesn't impress me.
Keanu.
I've never been a Keanu Reeves fan.
Well, all right.
You know, remember? I mean, I'm an '80s kid, so what was Keanu Reeves famous for back then?
Bill and Ted.
Yeah, which to me was
I hated.
Which to me was a very dorky.
I hated Bill and Ted.
A very dorky portrayal of partiers.
But you know what's funny?
And I was a partier, so I found it very offensive. My favorite partier is, who do you think?
Your favorite
partier? If you're gonna go stoner, there's two movies that had great stoners in them.
Oh, I know Animal House.
Cheech and Chong.
Animal House.
And no. Can you guess the other movie that had a great stoner in it?
Oh man,
It was a lot better than a Bill and Ted, but the same type, a California stoner. Come on,
I'm trying to think.
Come on, kids. See, there's recovery stuff.
It had to be
Sean Penn.
but
That's right. Hey, dude, let's party. Fast Times at
Fast
Ridgemont
Times,
High.
there we go. Yeah,
Absolutely. Now
That was what I was
those
trying to
two, so when Bill and Ted came out, to me it was like a wannabe, you know.
You know what? I have a whole
Sean Penn did it so well that
I was never a huge fan of Keanu. Like I didn't really care either way.
Yeah.
But I posted something on my social media the other day.
Yeah.
Asking who would you'd want to have like a conversation with living.
Don't tell me someone said Keanu
Somebody
Reeves.
said Keanu Reeves, and I was like, really? Why? And I was asking why, and then they sent me this little clip about why, like what they knew about him, and I watched it. I gotta say, he's more intriguing than I thought he was. Like apparently he was. I think.
Are you crossing over?
I think he was in foster care or something like that, and then or something. And then his sister, like he was really, really bonded with her, and she ended up having cancer. He left certain movies to go spend time with her, nurse her back to health and stuff. It's just a very interesting.
Don't make me like the guy for his personal reasons. Look, it has nothing to do with him personally. I don't know the guy personally. It's his movie stuff that I don't like. It's his acting.
Yeah, and that's what made me like rethink. I was like, I never really looked at it either way. But I gotta say,
it's just when I saw him in later movies, he still sounded like a California surfer in other movies.
You didn't like Point Break?
Which one?
You didn't like Point Break?
I like Point Break.
Patrick Swayze?
I like Point Break for Patrick Swayze, and I'm not a big Patrick Swayze fan.
All right.
But I only liked it because it was criminalistic.
Roadhouse, man.
It's criminalistic. How do you not like some criminalistic
Roadhouse
stuff?
was awesome.
And Roadhouse was good. And a friend of mine is in that movie as a musician. So I like
Pain Don't Hurt.
Yeah, the music in there is from Tito and Tarantula, which is really Tito La Riva from El Paso, Texas. Right. Tito, you did fantastic in Roadhouse. And, that band that you see playing right there in Roadhouse, that's Tito.
Right.
So that's awesome.
Right
so
on.
Anyway, let's continue. This show is focused on addiction and recovery and everything in between. And obviously we do a lot of in between.
Yes.
So
squirrels.
Yeah, a lot of squirrels on the couch live. But anyway, today we're talking about, and look, I shouldn't have wrote this down right in front of me because now it got distracted about the next show instead of this show. And this show is different. This show is going to be on what, Trinity? Tell everybody what the poll is that we put out.
I don't have it in front of me, but the poll was basically asking if counseling or therapy, however you want to phrase it, is necessary in drug and alcohol recovery.
Well, the reason we said counseling is because
yes.
Therapists have a market on the word therapy.
They do.
You have to be a licensed individual to call yourself a therapist. So once you say therapy, it kind of puts it in a different realm.
Right. So counseling,
but that's because therapists have always been a little bit elitist.
Ooh.
Yeah, they are. I think just like physicians are a little bit of elitist.
All right.
And rightly so. They went through a lot of school and a lot of stuff to get what they got. So they don't like anyone using certain words that apply to them, and I get it. I get it.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, we said, is counseling necessary?
Yeah. Robbie's got the actual poll in front of him.
Necessary. So you're gonna say it? Okay, go ahead, Robbie.
Is counseling necessary for the recovery of substance use disorders? And so far we have 60% said yes, and 40% said no.
Oh, it's close.
60-40.
Yeah. It's close.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
60-40.
Yeah.
All right, so more people are saying that it is necessary.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right on.
Did you answer the poll, Robbie?
I did. I said no just because I've seen a lot of people get sober just with 12-step programs.
Okay.
And I mean, there might be some people that would consider that like a form of group therapy. But
okay.
I think one-on-one with a counselor, I mean, it's definitely been beneficial for me.
Right.
But I don't know if everybody can fit into the same shoes.
So let's do it like this. Let's make the case for yes for a second, Robbie. Go ahead and make the case for why it would be beneficial or necessary.
Definitely. So I think coping skills and stuff like CBT can help you analyze the negative thought patterns you get into. And when you're coming out of an active addiction, people don't realize that there's so much lying that's involved with that, and just kind of understanding how you were thinking and how those thoughts could possibly take you back to that active cycle of addiction. And I mean, a lot of times in active addiction, people try to play their own therapist and are justifying all their behaviors and actions, when in reality, when you start saying these things out loud to someone else, it makes a lot more sense. And you're like, wow, did I really think like this? Like, did I think this was going to be a good idea?
Right.
And they can point that out for you, and that's what they're professionally trained in. So.
Right.
Right on.
Okay. And what's the case for not then?
The only thing that I was thinking of was there's so many people that I've met that are kind of against outside help, which doesn't really make sense, because I'm kind of in the boat where you believe, like, if you can get sober and if you can get off those hard drugs, then, like, by any means possible, really.
Right.
And I have seen people get sober just with 12-step meetings, so I guess that would be the case. And yeah.
Okay. And so how are you defining sober? Not using?
Yeah, not using.
Okay.
Abstinent from all substances.
Okay. All right. Now you said it in a way to me. Did you kind of hear that, Trinity? You kind of said it like you're worried about offending certain people in your life that are clean and sober through the rooms. Is that what you're talking about, in the rooms?
Yeah.
And so when you say that you've seen them get clean and sober that way, and you said they're against counseling.
Yeah, I mean, it's those people that are against, like, things like Vivitrol, though. Like, it's just stuff that doesn't make sense.
Right. So, I don't know. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking part of me getting clean and sober was being a lot more accepting of a lot of things, including things that I may not want to agree with or have to agree with.
Yeah.
But accepting everybody's path. I mean, that's kind of the deal. To me, that's what I call sobriety.
Well, isn't there a difference between recovery and sobriety or something?
Yeah,
like that,
I think so. I think there's a lot to be said. It's a lot harder to measure. I think there's a lot to be said of people that are more open to other people and other people's ways of doing things. And I think that as soon as someone becomes closed-minded and concrete in their thinking, that there's only one way to do something.
Yep.
I think psychologically, I don't think you're sober anymore. I think psychologically now you're being rigid. And that's not what we got clean and sober to be. Yeah. We didn't get clean and sober to be rigid.
Yeah, I do think it's dangerous when you have that one-set mentality that only this program is going to work.
Right. Right. So I hesitate to that. And I want to go where you went to, because you actually tapped into something, Robbie, that we're going to be talking a little bit more about. So we can go ahead and do it right now. You said it depends on how you define counseling.
Yeah.
So can you define it other ways? Right. See, now they're texting you right now. They're saying, "I told you, Robbie."
Yes. No.
Gosh darn it, Robbie.
Yeah.
No.
Tell that dope doctor.
No, I'm personally
Dharma guy.
Stop. I'm personally very open to any way that people can get off things like heroin or crack or anything that's completely destroying their lives.
Yeah.
Maintain sobriety.
No, but when you said counseling, that counseling can be defined different ways. Like
so you have like
you hit on something
like
really good.
CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay, thanks.
And that's kind of, from what I understand, you kind of analyze thoughts and and kind of see how they affect patterns and behaviors eventually. And then you have things like the rapid eye. I don't know the.
Yeah, you just did it. Rapid eye movement.
The rapid eye movement where you. I think you focus on like a specific thought or like trigger word, whatever it is, and then you like follow cue, and that's supposed to target like the REM. I don't really know how it works.
Yeah.
But it works.
It's difficult, right?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Right.
And then just I guess normal talk therapy would be CBT.
Well, forget just the types. I'm not asking you to define
just
types. That's why I'm not correcting and I'm not jumping in with those kinds of things, because that's really not as important. I'm talking about when I say types of counseling, I mean more like
group counseling. Yeah,
group counseling, formal therapy. Whether you use a psychologist, psychiatrist, a counselor, whether you use a friend, a neighbor. I mean, there's all different types. So Trinity and I were talking about this. So Trinity, maybe it's time for you to jump in a little bit and talk about, because you are a spiritual counselor and a wellness coach and things like that. So when you hear counseling, what do you think of?
When I hear counseling, I think of, going outside yourself to a professional, essentially. I think that I always find it funny when people. Well, I should say funny, more like humorous funny, not ha-ha. But
I thought ha-ha is humorous. Interesting. You mean interesting funny, not humorous funny.
There you go. We'll go with that one. No, I just think that it's interesting We use that one. When people try to say, I don't want to do counseling, and because I've heard quite a few of those in my life.
Right, yeah, me
Friends, acquaintances, and stuff are like, I'm never going one of them stupid counselors, and I don't need any of that, that kind of stuff.
Stigma.
That stuff doesn't work, and how can some stranger help me with my problems? I've heard all of those.
Right.
However, those same people will go to friends and family. And they'll, when something happens, they'll be one of the first ones that picks up the phone and calls their buddy. Yo, you believe this crap that my wife did last night? And then their buddy's like, oh, well, hey, man, my wife did the same thing. And that's counseling. Whether you want to call it that or not, that's what that is.
Right.
The difference, though, is instead of going to your buddy who's got their own problems and who has their own perspective and isn't trained to separate those two, you're going to a professional.
Right.
Like it's, I think the example I used with you on the phone the other day was, it's like if my car broke down, I wouldn't go to the 7-Eleven cashier and be like, hey, man, can you do me a favor? Can you tell me what's wrong with my car?
Right.
No, I go to a professional. I go to somebody who's trained to do this. Even though at one time the 7-Eleven cashier was able to tell me how to fix like something stupid mechanically in my car real quickly, doesn't mean he's an expert.
Right.
I'm not going to go back to him for something that important. And I see it all the time, oh my gosh, especially in the health and fitness world. Right. In the health and fitness world, there's so many people who will come to me and pay me good money to do stuff for them. And then like a month later, they'll send me, I'll check in on them. And they're doing something completely different because they got an email from like a coworker.
Right.
It's like, hold up, that coworker didn't go to school and isn't trained to understand all the potential pitfalls that you're going to run into, right?
Right.
And I think that is one of the major differences of going to a professional. I mean, first of all, we all do it. Right. Whether we say we do it or not, we all do it. We all have a friend, we all have a family member, a relative, somebody that we call and we confide into and we get advice from. That is counseling. So if you're going to do it, why not go to somebody who's trained to understand the potential pitfalls? I'll say, I'll use the health and fitness example again. If somebody comes to me and they have like this new diet or something they want to do, well, if I'm not trained, then I'm going to say, oh, well, if it's working, go ahead and do it. That's awesome. Congratulations, whatever. But as a trained professional, I'm trying to look at the viability of that and how long is it going to last? Is it sustainable?
Right.
And so if I have a client who's trying to do something that I see pitfalls in, then I'm going to say, hey, maybe we should rethink this because I'm thinking long term. I'm thinking what's going to happen when that inevitably fails, or inevitably you have a plateau or whatever it may be. How's that going to affect you and how's that going to impact you? Because if you're not realizing that ahead of time and planning for it, then what happens is you try to do a diet that is essentially not sustainable. Let's say, for instance, giving up sugar, right? I'm going to give up sugar completely for the rest of my life.
Right.
Some could argue that that's not really sustainable because everything these days has some amount of sugar in it, right?
Right.
Not to mention there's no science that says sugar is actually bad for you. It's called moderation, right? So you set out on this journey where I'm going to go ahead and get rid of sugar for the rest of my life. It's never going to happen. Oh, my gosh, that sounds so awesome, and that's honorable. Good for you. I hope you're going to do that. I, as a professional, think, okay, you're going to hit that wall at some point. There's going to be a point that's going to happen where you're not going to be able to sustain that, and you're going to give up, and you're going to give sugar. And then what happens is you're going to go overboard. You're going to consume a ton of sugar. And then you're going to have that mental pitfall afterwards of, oh, I suck. I'm so horrible. I was doing so good. I can't believe I fell off the wagon. Now I'm eating nothing but sugar. I'm so stupid. I'm so worth. I can't do this. And then you get in this little cycle of despair, which all could have been prevented had you gone to a professional, got a professional way of eating and consuming things that's going to be beneficial to you and much more sustainable long term. So you could have skipped the plateau, you could have skipped the fall, and you could have skipped the mental anguish that you just put yourself through.
Right.
Had you gone to a professional who could have seen that coming up.
Right.
And so I think that's, and when you were saying about confirming your own opinions and stuff like that, and you and I've joked about this a lot too, name one person who couldn't go into like a bar or something like that and start complaining about your wife. And you wouldn't have a million people joining in.
Yep.
Right? They would all join in and complaining. Is that beneficial? No. Is anybody in there who's the one guy that's going to step in and say, well, you know what, man, your wife's got it hard. Your wife, no, they're not going to do that. It's just confirmation bias. They're all just going to confirm.
Right.
And then you're going to walk out, not with a new perspective. You're going to walk out with, yeah, man, I knew she was wrong.
Right.
You're going to walk in the door and be like, hey, I talked to all my friends, and they said, hold up, you're not in a relationship with your friends.
Right. Yeah.
Did any of them give you a different perspective? And so I think that's where the danger lies, especially when it comes to drug and alcohol, because, as we said before, it hijacks your brain.
Right.
So if your brain is already hijacked, you can't trust any of your feelings or thoughts at the moment.
Right.
And which means you can't trust their feelings or thoughts.
Right.
And then you're all basically just kind of confirming one another's biases. Where's the professional come in and says, hold up, I know it feels that way at the moment, but here's a different perspective that might kind of shed some light on that.
Right.
And so I think that's why, yes, it's absolutely necessary.
And it's a lot easier to do that when you don't have a emotional investment in the person.
Absolutely.
And you're not like a friend or a family member or a relative or even
Yes.
that person in the bar that wants to kind of egg you on. You're
Yeah.
a third party outside person who has no investment in this person. So it's going to be easier to be objective and do your job as a professional.
Right.
Well.
Yeah, I agree in all that. I see, the counsel, everybody seeks counsel, some way. And I like the way you guys are putting it about there's a difference between professional counseling and just seeking counsel from a friend or whatever. Now, you may call it support. You may call it feedback. You may call it advice. You may call it anything. Or you may just think you're just sharing. But you're getting some sort of visual cue. You're getting some sort of cue from whoever you're talking to that's typically validating whatever you want. And that's why they're your friends. Typically people don't rock the boat around you. It's not just movie stars that are hanging around a bunch of people that are yes men. A lot of people hang around a lot of yes men. You just don't know it.
Yeah.
You just don't think so. And so when you do that, you tend to reach out to them, like you said, Trinity, and you get that outside counsel and get through it. But there is this stigma attached to paying for it. Mm-hmm. There is this stigma attached to going to somebody who doesn't know your life as a whole and giving you that. So you tend to believe that if you don't know my life as a whole, then you can't help me. But that's under the assumption that your problem is based on your life as a whole. There are little segments of what you're going through that are directly that can be handled if you just get really focused on that specific route.
Is there another thing that we do that with?
What?
Like, if your car broke down today,
Right.
would you not just take it to any mechanic who's trained to handle it?
Right.
Would you have to say, no, you had to have been dealing with my truck since day one?
Right.
No. Or like you break if you go on vacation, when you're coming up on vacation, you're probably going to hurt yourself because you always do.
Right.
Are you gonna forego emergency care? He does, dude. He's always hurting himself.
He's got to see his childhood doctor.
Yeah, that's actually true. That's actually
Are you
true.
going to forego medical help because you got to come all the way back down to Florida to make sure you go to the same doctor?
Some people do feel that way. Actually, you just tapped into it.
You're going to sit there with a broken arm?
No, not me. Not me, but you actually just tapped into it. Some people believe that if they're not if they're going to get help from somebody, that it has to be somebody who has a full knowledge about who they have been and who they are, who their family are, and they just feel more comfortable that way. And I think not only that, I think that's one reason. But the other reason that Robbie, I think, brought up was that stigma attached to maybe somebody not using the same method that they want to hear, which is, it was given to me freely, therefore it should be given freely. Like, I remember when I first became a counselor, and I came from the room, so there's something to be said about, I give back freely what was given to me freely, right? So to charge for it, I thought was very difficult for a lot of counselors like me initially. Even though I didn't mind charging people for other services that I've done in my life or other types of businesses, for some reason, the business of counseling, you want to give it away. Yeah. And you devalue it.
I went through the same thing when I was doing the Buddhist classes. I felt weird charging.
Exactly. And so I think that, my accountants have never felt odd asking for money. Yeah. My attorneys have definitely never felt odd asking for money. Other professions are much better at putting a value on their work and their effort, but people tend to not want to put that same effort or value on a counselor or on a therapist. You're making faces as if we're not online.
No, I'm watching the Facebook feed as well, and it just stopped for some reason.
Oh,
so, no, I agree. I've never been able to understand this weird aversion people have to therapy. It's like there's a stigma attached to it. Like you're some weak, kind of like you're some pansy. What's wrong with you? You go into this
why can't
person,
you handle it yourself?
Or this stranger doesn't, what are they going to help me with? They don't know anything about it and stuff. Right. It's like we all assume that our problem is so unique and so amazing and so powerful that nobody can help us with this one problem. Right. Yeah, you can. Like, you're having the same problems we all have, dude. Well, it's just got different names and faces to it.
And that's the thing. In the rooms of recovery, your sponsor, you have a sponsor and you're a sponsee or whatever, but that is a form of counseling.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like you said, it's not a trained individual. The person is trained only in that form, and not other forms. And unfortunately, there's just some of you just aren't. You're not equipped to deal with some of the issues that you're dealing with, and I think it's real important for you to accept that and be okay with that. I mean, there's a lot of look. I'm a certified addictions professional. I've been in private practice for over 25 years. I've done a lot of forms of counseling, but it doesn't mean that when I'm dealing with somebody that has a specific issue that I feel, all right, well, that's not really my specialty, even though I'm a counselor. Right. So I'm going to bring in another professional as well to deal with that. And like when you mentioned different types of trauma therapies, there's a lot of different types of therapies that we use for trauma. Right. And so if I wanted to utilize one of those, and I'm not trained in that, why wouldn't I call like an Aaron Moore from Solace Counseling and bring him in, you know, and say, because I've done that a lot with Aaron, where I'll say, all right, I'm going to do this, Aaron, but I'm going to send them to you to kind of deal with this. Is that cool? And we work well together. We're not conflictual. Right. You know, one is not going to step on the other's toes. And sometimes I'll say, I tell you what, you've been with me for a while. I'm going to send you over here now to go a little bit deeper. This is about as deep as I'm cool with going with you right now. But this therapist right here is going to go deeper, because I don't necessarily go into those deep-rooted issues. I'm a crisis management. I'm a problem solver initially. I am a connector of people. That's where my gifts are. Right? I'm real good at analyzing the thing from the beginning, and then guiding you into a path of treatment. Right?
I think that's huge, dude.
So
I don't think a lot of people do
I
that.
like that specialty.
Yeah.
And so instead of focusing on me becoming, it's not that I can't go deeper. I just choose that. I think I like where I'm at. I like that crisis management. I want to be that first phone call. If you want to call somebody that you're suffering right now, I want to be that first phone call, and I want to start you off. Now, from there, I'm gonna bring in the Aarons. I'm gonna bring in the Denny's. I'm gonna bring in those people, and I'm gonna use them to get further and deeper into your issues, because we know there's deeper rooted issues. You know, I want to be that. Now, it doesn't discount 12-step meetings. It doesn't discount the rooms. It uses the rooms.
Well, it's another piece of the puzzle.
But yeah, exactly. It's another piece. It's not the piece.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like the other day when we heard we had a guest. We had Dr. Kelly Clark from ASAM. She was the president of ASAM, and I didn't mean to disagree. However, I do disagree with the fact that that medication is the therapy and that counseling is an adjunct to that therapy. I disagree with that. I think that either or can be the adjunct. Either or could be the complement. However, I think that if you don't start with some form of counseling first, then how do you gain those problem-solving skills? How do you gain those crisis management skills? How do you gain the trust in other people so that you can go to them? How do you gain the trust in yourself and the communication with yourself to kind of know? How do you do that self-talk that you were talking about? How do you not hear? I mean, if you're not hearing yourself and hearing the things that you've said, and someone's not calling you on that, but it's not somebody that's also calling you on your financial help and your marital stuff, and I mean, because paraprofessionals are not professionals, so somebody who's not your financial advisor shouldn't be giving you financial advice. Somebody who's not your legal counsel should not be giving you legal advice. Somebody who's not your marital therapist shouldn't be giving you marital advice. Somebody who's not your drug and alcohol counselor should not be giving you drug and alcohol advice. People that are there for you as friends give you friendly help. They should be listeners more than advice givers. People who are there maybe as a sponsor should be guiding you through the 12-step program, not necessarily being your financial advisor, your therapist, and all that other stuff.
Stay in your lane, man.
You got to stay in your lane.
I was going to say something on that point.
Okay, go ahead.
So I do sponsor a couple guys, and one of them does have like an outside, pretty severe mental health thing. Like I don't know if it's whatever you want to call it, but I don't try to advise him on that, and I don't tell him like to pray about it and it will go away, like
which is the advice you get a lot in other places.
Yeah, which is what you hear from a lot of sponsors. Like, well, have you prayed about it? Have you read page 86?
Right.
See, I think that's such a huge deal, right? Like, to kind of rewind just a little bit, only because it speaks so loudly to me, is, and I think that kind of, in a way, almost goes towards the stigma a little bit, and that is, people got to stay in their lane, man. If you're not qualified to do something, it doesn't lessen you in any way, shape, or form. That's just not the area you went in, right? I see a lot in the fitness stuff too, right? If somebody were to come to me, like Robbie, if you were to come to me tomorrow and say you want to be my client, but you want to go into shows and bodybuilding, I wouldn't take you on. I'm capable. I have the knowledge, but I think there's other people out there who are better suited to help you through that. I think there's somebody who that's their focus on things, and they could help you with the posing and all these other things. They've actually been on stage that I haven't. So I would send you to that person. Doesn't mean I'm not good. Doesn't mean that's just not the lane I went to go in. Right. And I think that's the problem, is everybody wants to be everything to everybody. Nobody wants to just be like, that's not my specialty. Let's send you to somebody else. And I think that's the problem, because then you will have, I firmly believe that there's going to be therapists out there who will give therapy a bad name. because
no
they won't
doubt.
be qualified to do something.
No doubt.
And instead of sending them to somebody else,
There's tons of them.
I've met one.
Right.
I won't say in which avenue of my life, but I have met one. I've interacted. We talked, and this person, as far as I'm concerned, was worthless.
Right.
They were way out of their depth.
Right.
They didn't know what they were doing.
Right.
I heard some of the stuff that they were saying and doing, and I completely disagree with all of it, and we stopped seeing that person. I just completely left them. Wow. And I could totally see if that was my only interaction, I would say, dude, therapists are ridiculous. Right. I would never go to a therapist. They didn't help at all.
There's so many bad therapists.
And that's the problem.
And that is a problem.
I think
that is a problem.
And the problem is the bad ones don't know they're bad. Right?
No, and some of them are very popular. Some of them are very popular because, you know, a lot of bad therapists actually agree with everything their clients say. They become friends with their clients is the problem. Yeah. And the whole idea is not being the friendly. You got to call someone on their stuff sometimes. Like go a little bit further where you were going with that point there, Robbie, though, because I feel like you had more to say about
the sponsor point
of why you hold back and why you stay in your lane about that.
Yeah,
I feel like you had more to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I am going into the medical profession, obviously.
Right.
But that doesn't make me qualified right now where I am. Like, I obviously can't prescribe an individual medication or be like, all right, you go on this website and you're going to take this pill and it's going to cure whatever you're feeling.
Yeah.
Like, that's not my lane. My lane is to guide them and just do what my sponsor did with me.
Right.
And nothing further than that.
Sounds like you had a good sponsor.
Yeah.
Or have a good sponsor.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know.
Lawyers, man. They're the best at it.
Right.
The lawyers are the best ones, I swear.
Yeah, they definitely stay in their lane. They definitely stay in their lane.
Yeah.
And you know, and here's what I'm thinking about when you say it, is, and again, when we do these shows, it's so easy to feel like there are sponsors out there, or people from the 12-step programs, they get upset. They've been getting upset with me since 1999, since I've started on the air, though.
Sure.
You know? But here's the real deal. The real deal is the only reason they get upset is because I'm not saying 100% of what they want to say. I don't believe in one doctrine of anything and for anything. I don't believe in one patent treatment for everybody. And here's the problem. This is a disease. This is a disease. But as soon as we start treating it like a behavioral issue or an attitude issue, which is, I think, what, if you look at the 12 steps, we say spiritual problem and all this stuff, but it's not just a spiritual disease. But the disease is a spiritual disease as well. It's not just a behavioral disease, but it is a behavioral disease as well. But it's a brain disease. And so if we take the brain out of it, and you take that medicinal part or that neurological part or that physiological part out of it, then what are you really treating? You're only treating the outer lobe, the thinking, the reasoning, and the learning, but you're not really treating the true cravings. There was no step or promise to me that told me the cravings would go away. They just say wait around till the miracle happens. But they didn't really define what that was.
Right.
And they couldn't. You know why they couldn't define what that was? Because there was no science to prove it. There was only it was anecdotal information. There was only subjective information. If in other words, if I got clean that way, that's the way I teach the next person to get clean. But that's not science. That's not research. That's based on anecdotal information. So I get that you want to share that, and I think that's important, just like weight loss and stuff like that. It's important. However, if you're going to call something a disease, and you're going to believe that it's a disease, then you should treat it like a disease. You are viewed as an expert by this person that's coming in day one. They have no clean time.
Right.
They're looking for answers. They're looking for somebody, but they're also, remember, this is a disease that wants to find the easier, softer way. And you just may be that easier, softer way. You're not always, because a lot of people don't want to go to meetings because that is not the easier, softer way in reality. But to some people, they may think that it is, because they don't want to be on any medication, or they don't want to be paying any more money out because they don't have any money out, or they don't want to go to counseling and hear anything else. They don't want to be talking about their mommies and daddies and all that stuff. They don't want to be talking about how they have this trauma. They don't want to be talking about the sexual trauma. You know, but you know how many people were sexually traumatized that are in the rooms? But in the rooms, you do not talk about sex. You don't talk about those things. You don't have any opinions on outside issues.
Right.
You know how many people in the rooms have financial problems, and that's part of their problem?
Yeah.
Praying about it is not going to change I need to get financially responsible. Just being sober is not going to make me financially responsible.
Definitely.
Just being sober is not going to make me a better husband.
It's not going to help you cope with the problems that made it happen in the first place.
Correct. There's roots, and that's why you have so many dry drunks out there and dry addicts out there. And it's not just that they're missing a step. What's happening is that some of them have some serious mental health issues.
Right.
Untreated mental health issues. There's a lot of individuals in there that do have clinical depression.
And a lot of the time that gets swept under the rug as untreated alcoholism.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Or go to more meetings.
Yeah.
I was feeling bad, so I needed to go to more meetings. And I started going to more meetings. I felt better. Maybe it's because you got out. Maybe you were isolating, but maybe that wasn't your disease. Maybe that was your mental health illness.
Yeah.
Maybe that was depression. Maybe the reason you weren't going out was depression. Maybe your trigger is depression. Maybe your trigger is anxiety, and it's not just disease of addiction. And I think that's the problem. We oversimplify addiction.
Yeah.
There's so many of us that oversimplify what addiction is. And it may be simple in the future. We might find that out. But it is a much more medical than we like to admit. There is much more medical complication. If you have low dopamine, you have low dopamine. If you have low serotonin, you have low serotonin. If your system, if your dopamine reward system is not working properly, it's just not working properly. You know what I mean? And what my sponsor used to give me when I used to go sit at the table, constantly sugar. Right? Sugar, right? So there was all these smokers, everybody drinking coffee, and then giving you candy.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, the more I learned about addiction, the more I realized, well, this right here is not helping my addiction part. So maybe behaviorally I'm doing better. Maybe I'm not using cocaine.
Right.
But I'm not really treating the addiction part. That's why I'm still having ups and downs and stuff like that, because I'm still going up and crashing. I'm still going up and crashing with caffeine and stuff like that. Yeah. So maybe I need to regulate some of that. You know, we call it like the South Florida. Like, I like Monsters, but I drink one. You know, you go to South Florida, these dudes are drinking all day long.
This guy that I go to a meeting with on Sunday night always has the two Monsters on top of one another.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, every single time.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I do like about,
and so that's harm. I would call that harm reduction.
He's a great.
No. I would call it harm reduction. I think that and I have no problem with harm reduction. By the way, I think there's a lot of things that are harm reduction that if, as long as you're not using what was killing you, you're still better than you were.
Sure.
I'm cool with that.
But we can't confuse that with fixing, though.
But yeah, don't confuse that. Yeah, and that's why I think it depends on how healthy you want to be. Like, I'm not eating tofu and I'm not doing yoga every day, right? So I tell my wife, one day I'll probably be eating tofu and doing yoga every day.
No, you won't.
But it's not today.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's not for a very long time, because I kind of like the little level of sickness that I still have, because I still you know what I mean? It's just is what it is. I mean, it's just being honest with yourself. Like, I'm not fully healthy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'll still have my moments where I'll indulge in something just probably a little bit more than a normal person, because my tolerance level can get high really fast. But the key is to understand that tolerance, anything that you can get tolerance to, is something that you have to watch out for.
Sure.
And that's the rule. I know I don't have to watch out for tacos, because I never get a tolerance for tacos. I've been eating tacos all my life and still can eat 6. So, but if I was now having to eat 12 to 20 tacos to feel the level of satisfaction I got with 6, then I'd have to do something about my taco use. And I think that's a good way to know, is this harmful or not harmful?
Well, I had 2 things that popped in my head.
I saw you writing down, so I knew that you were doing the nose thing.
Yeah, doing the daring thing.
Yeah.
Well, one of them was, I do think it's really cool, though, that at least in the addiction world, that you do have free access to things like AA that could help legitimately people.
Oh my God, so much.
I think that's an amazing thing.
It's such a benefit.
Because I know a lot of people who are dealing with issues,
right,
you know, with their children, with marriages, with all sorts of stuff.
Right.
That if they don't have insurance or an EAP program or something, they're stuck.
Correct.
There's really nothing they can do.
Correct.
Other than call friends, you know,
right,
or read a book or something like that. So I think it's really cool that if you're struggling with addiction, you can always just go to AA or NA groups. I think that's really cool that's in place.
It's a tremendous value.
And so I don't want to downplay the benefit of that. You know, when we start talking about professionals, I want to at least acknowledge that is a really awesome thing in place.
I do see them as professionals in the steps.
Yeah,
I do see them as professionals in there's a crisis management there.
But here's
I think they're crisis management as well, like I am.
And here's the,
because I come from those rooms, so I think they are like me, except they don't shoot. You know, if they, and I'm not going to say they, because there's a lot of them in there that now understand science and believe in science and utilize counseling and utilize medications and all that stuff.
Right.
But I'm just talking about the ones that kind of hurt some of the people we send in there, because they tell them you're not sober if.
Yeah. Well, I think that to me is where the difference, right? And so I came up with I remembered a story. It's kind of anecdotal. I don't want to trivialize it, but I think it kind of illustrates the point.
Okay.
So coffee, right?
Okay.
Not a huge coffee drinker.
Right.
And I would have these little double shots every now and then from the store, the Starbucks ones.
Yeah.
They were great. They tasted fine. They got me my energy.
Right.
But I never could go into a coffee shop. I didn't know what I should do. And I would ask all my friends who all drink coffee.
Right.
And they would all have different opinions, and I would try them, and it would never work out the same way. It was always like it didn't satisfy.
Right.
It didn't meet my expectations. I had no clue. You and I went to, we had an event at UCF
Right.
Afterwards, we went to Starbucks with Nico.
Right.
Nico's on our board for the Now Matters More Foundation.
Right.
Apparently, she used to be a barista, and so
Yep.
she knows an awful lot about.
She's an expert.
She was a professional.
Yep.
Right. She was a professional. She was trained on how to do it. One conversation with her, she got me exactly. She fixed exactly what I wanted. She knew exactly how to order it and everything else, and it's been perfect ever since.
Because she's a professional in caffeine.
And that would be she was a professional barista, so she knew how it was brewed. She knew why. She even educated you on some of the stuff that you were drinking.
Yeah,
about,
I didn't
know. Yeah, why they brew it this and why they put that there, and that would be the difference.
Right.
I talked to a ton of people who all drink coffee every day, and they all had opinions, and they were all subpar. Basically, they didn't fix the problem that I was having. One conversation with her. Done.
It's because we tend to think that because we do something every day or we do a lot of it that we're experts.
Yeah.
If I drive a car every day, I still can't fix it.
Yeah.
I've flown on how many airlines, and I can't fly a plane.
Yeah.
So I'm not an expert in any of that stuff. Just because I do it doesn't make me an expert.
Yeah,
You know,
and she actually had the training to understand what the problem I was having, what taste I was going for, and what was going to make that happen.
Yeah.
Not just because she drank it, but because she was educated on the background on how that works. And so I think that's the key difference there between a professional and somebody who's just helping out. The professional's been trained.
So getting back to if counseling is necessary, here's my take on it. I think that for substance use disorders, counseling is absolutely necessary if your goal, depending on your goal. Now, if your goal is to get to a very healthy place where your addiction is almost in the background, you don't really see it, feel it, you don't really have it, and you want to get there as safely and possible. As safely as possible and as fast as possible. I think that having somebody that is not emotionally attached to you, helping guide you, and a knowledgeable, but it has to be a knowledgeable person. I got to qualify all this. It has to be by the right person, because if you get it done by the wrong person, then it could be harmful.
Yeah.
But here's going to be my qualifying. When I say counseling is necessary, I don't mean it has to be a professional all the time. I really don't. I think that it could be, if you're a spiritual person, it could be a spiritual counselor. I think if you're a person in the rooms, it could be through counseling of someone that's just really good at in the rooms. If you're good with that,
right?
Whatever you're comfortable, wherever your goal is, if that's the goal you have, then fine, that's it. But that is a form of counseling. You're not charging for it. I get it, and you're cool with that. But I'm cool with somebody that's all they want to do, because I too, Robbie, have seen a lot of people get clean and sober just in the rooms, and they're cool with that, and I'm good with them.
Yeah.
That way. But that is still a form of counseling. So when I hear is counseling necessary, absolutely, because the way you first defined it, Trinity, was seeking outside of yourself. I 100% think that every single individual with a substance use disorder has to seek outside themselves to deal with the substance use disorder. Now, depending on how sick you are, depending on how long you've been going, depending on what goal and outcome you want, will then depend on, do you need a more of a medical approach or at least a medical approach in addition to what you're dealing with. Now, some would say a medical approach is necessary in all of them, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think that a medical approach is necessary for every single person with a substance use disorder. But here's my issue with that. I don't think that we are up to the level in our state of medicine that can do it. I don't think that we have enough qualified physicians that know what the hell they're doing, even though I agree with the physicians that do it. Say everybody should see a medical professional, and it's a medical disease, so you should treat it medically. I agree with you. The problem is I don't think you or the people around you necessarily are qualified enough.
Yeah.
I think many of you are still too biased. Many of you don't respect the art of the one-to-one conversation. Many of you don't respect the art of a group. You don't understand the universality effect of a group conscious. I don't think many of you understand what a 12-step room really is, other than what you've seen on some movie or what you've read in a pamphlet or heard in a class. I don't think you as medical professionals are qualified enough yet to handle this disease. So until they're ready for us, until they raise up their level of expertise to meet the needs of this disease, we're going to continue debating this, and we're going to continue having to make sure we can somehow get to the right person that can say, you know what, I know somebody who can help you with that.
And the other big problem with just handling the disease medically, not receiving outside help, is say I come in for an opioid addiction, I'm either going to be prescribed Suboxone or possibly Vivitrol
or methadone.
Yeah, or methadone, which is like more of a last resort treatment. It seems like, but with the Suboxone, you have the human patient factor, and if you're not handling the addiction, then it is possible to abuse this medication. With the Vivitrol, it's not possible to abuse opioids, but sure, I can go buy some benzos if I'm not handling the addiction piece. So there is this human component that you can't just hand someone a pill, even though they're very effective for a lot of people in conjunction with counseling. But this can't be the only layer of defense that you have for your addiction.
Well, it's because it does go into remission. And I think one of the issues that we forget is that this is a disease that goes into remission.
Yeah.
You know, this is a disease that yes, for certain diseases like diabetes never really goes into remission. You always need your insulin. Mm-hmm. So diabetes never goes into remission. So one of the issues with comparing this to diabetes all the time is that component.
Yeah.
Right.
Cancer does go into remission. So even though we use chemotherapy to treat and deal with cancer, you don't keep doing chemotherapy when cancer's in remission.
No.
So what we have to ask ourselves, and what we need our doctors to help us with, and we need their science to catch up, is we need to know if Suboxone is equal to chemotherapy, then when is it time to remove it?
And that's hard because you get a tolerance.
Right.
And if you go down, you get withdrawal symptoms. Then you have the urge to take greater doses of opioids because you still have those receptors filled.
Right. Yeah, but the people that are really big into Suboxone, they want to tell us that we could use it for the rest of our lives. They want to tell us that we could be on methadone for the rest of our lives. They want to tell us we could be on Vivitrol for the rest of our lives. And Vivitrol is a non-addictive thing. Even that, though, I'm thinking, wait a minute.
I don't like the idea of being on anything for the rest of my life.
I don't think that the goal should ever be on using something the rest. The only reason we do that with diabetes is because it never is arrested.
Yeah, it's medically necessary, else you're going to have
100% medically necessary on a daily basis.
Yep.
So I don't think that we should treat addiction all the way like diabetes.
No.
I think it's we have to treat it for the disease that it is. It's a disease that goes into remission. It's a disease that we should definitely celebrate when it's in remission, and call ourselves survivors instead of I'm in recovery. I'm no longer in recovery. That sounds like I'm in a hospital bed still. Right?
Yeah.
I know. I hate the fact that that's the word I have to use. But the only reason I use it is because that's what makes people understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I say recovery, you understand it.
Connects you to other recovering people.
Correct. But I'm in remission. I'm a survivor, man. I'm a survivor of the disease of addiction, and that means if I lapse, or relapse, or if I come out of remission, better stated, if I become symptomatic again, then I can go back and get the same therapies and get back to being a survivor. Look, when somebody comes out, when cancer returns to somebody, they don't go, oh my God, I lost all my days out of cancer. I lost all those days I had.
Yeah.
Oh man, I was doing so well. I'm such a piece of crap because cancer came back. Nobody goes, see, I told you what, you kept going out in the sun, didn't you, Charlie? See, I told you, you got that skin cancer back because you went back out in the sun. You're an idiot.
Right.
Nobody does that.
No.
I would hope not.
Nobody goes to a diabetic when they lost one leg, and if they have to lose a second leg, you just kept doing it, didn't you? You're an idiot.
Right.
But the thing is, we're doing it to ourselves, people, because of the words we use. Because this fight between the rooms and medical. The rooms and medical need to stop this fight because that's what causes the problem. Because then what it looks like is that we have a medical model, which is based on disease, and then we have a rooms model based on attitude and behavior. You didn't want it bad enough. You just didn't do what you had to do. You know what to do, but you didn't do it. That's a behavior thing. You're saying it's a behavior. So that what you're saying by just sticking to that doctrine is that it's not a disease.
Right. Yeah, you had the knowledge, but you just didn't use it.
Correct. Then you're saying it's not a disease. Is this a brain disease? That means I can have the knowledge, but my brain says you're lying. My brain says I'm lying. My brain says, oh man, I can do it just this once. It's a brain disease. It's a thought disorder.
Right.
It's a thought disorder. Have you ever not been hungry and still felt hungry?
Yeah, they call that appetite.
I mean, there's things that happen in your brain, and you listen, if your brain says you're tired and sleepy, you're tired and sleepy. I don't care whether that's a reality or not. I don't care if you slept 8 hours.
Right.
If your brain says you're tired and sleepy, you're tired and sleepy. If your brain tells you it's time to eat and you try to reject that, it'll start turning things off. Mm-hmm. It'll start making that stomach. It might even make you bloat up. Mm-hmm. The opposite direction of what you think would hunger do. Now all of a sudden you start bloating up because it's like we're working in here, so now we're filling you full of gas.
Yeah.
Because we're still gonna work. I'm just saying that is counseling necessary? Counseling is absolutely necessary. Whatever form of counseling or whatever level of counseling, whether you want to pay for it, get it free, or whatever, but just do it. Just don't go by your own thoughts. Don't just go by your own ideas. And seek other opinions. And it doesn't matter if you use 4 or 5 different levels.
Yeah, that's a huge one right there.
4 or 5 different kinds. And I don't care how many times you lapse or relapse. Our next show is going to be on lapse and relapse because some of you need to know the difference.
Yeah.
Because this is, look, whatever it takes to get away from you, get away. If you're on methadone out there, and look, I may not really love it, but if it's working for you, it's working for you. And it is a form of treatment. It is a type of treatment. And who am I to ever say that you shouldn't be on methadone? I can have my own opinions on something without it having to affect you using it. Mm-hmm. You know, if it met the goals that you had, and the goals were you just didn't want to shoot heroin anymore, well, then it met that goal. Yeah. If that was your goal, then you met it. If you wanted to stop shooting heroin and you wanted to keep a job and you wanted to get back into that house and methadone allowed you to get all those 3 things, then damn it, it's working.
Congratulations.
Who's else to say it's not working?
Definitely.
My treatment plan is not your treatment plan. If you want to use Suboxone for the rest of your life, and that's on you, man. If that's your form of recovery, that's your form of recovery. I've seen it be a miracle for some people. So who am I to judge it? But if you wanted to be on a medication that's a non-dependent type medication, that you're no longer physically dependent on opiates, so you pick an antagonist like Vivitrol, then bless you too, man. Be on Vivitrol.
Yeah.
But to be somebody who says, I don't want any medication at all, and I don't need a medication, you're saying this is not a medical model, and you're risking something very deeply. Yep. You know, in the 80s when they told people on antidepressants that they were still using by being on antidepressants, so many people committed suicide through the 80s thinking, oh, I can't do antidepressants because that's cheating. I'm not sober. I just have to deal with it. No. Cocaine shrinks up that amygdala. It shrinks it up so you can't enjoy life the way normal people enjoy life. It causes depression. So here, when I was walking around for that initial 4 years, Robbie, it took me 4 years to feel good. 4 years for real, man.
Wow.
That's a horrible thing. That's why when people say, well, how long did it take you? I said, don't compare to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it really took a long time. But I started so damn young. I started at 9 years old. So when I quit, it was hard for me to enjoy life. And I thought that's just the way I felt. Mm-hmm. You know, because I even made not feeling good look good.
Yeah.
But, man, when I finally felt, like, good, I mean, I still remember it was almost like a switch just hit, and it was like, whoa. And I did give credit to the rooms.
Yeah.
I did give credit to the rooms. And as time went on, I realized, wow, man, that saved my life. Just standing there, what it did is it saved me from using again.
Definitely.
And it gave me enough time. Time was definitely a big healer for me. Mm-hmm. But who knows how much faster it could have been, what risk I was taking because I wasn't doing the medications that were recommended. Because I just wouldn't. Oh, because if I do medication, then I'm cheating. If I do medication, then I'm, no, I can't do medication. It was a stigma. There's so much stigma attached to medication, so I didn't do any of it.
Right.
You know how many people don't know they have depression, and they end up killing themselves? We just heard of Anthony Bourdain killed himself.
Yeah.
We just heard Anthony Bourdain killed himself.
Wow.
A known addict.
Yeah.
And was still drinking, by the way. You watch a show, you see him drinking alcohol all the time. How do we know that? Look, what killed him? The disease of addiction or his stigma attached to this depression, never treated depression? Maybe he was going to a therapist that said, your issue is depression, not drinking. Because that happens.
Yeah.
And that is where the distrust of counseling has come from the rooms. Is many of us have went to therapists, they treat you for one thing, think your issue is this, not alcohol. Your issue is this, not cocaine. Well, you know what? It's not. It's not alcohol. It's not cocaine. It's not heroin. But those things will kill you, and using those things will not allow you to deal with your depression. Using those things will never allow you to deal with your anxiety disorder. Using those things will never allow you to fully heal. So even though those are symptoms of a bigger problem, continued use of those things will never allow you to heal.
Nope.
Anyway, closing thoughts, you guys, at all?
Robbie?
Let's just get away from that stigma that keeps people out of any form of counseling, and stop playing your own therapist, and give Louie a call if you're having
833 Now Matters, not just me. 833 Now Matters.
Yeah, man.
Call 833 Now Matters and get connected with a professional today. I guarantee you what we do is we help get you connected with somebody who can help you.
Yeah.
Even if it's free. Even if it's a meeting.
Yeah, I'd echo that. You know, my I guess my closing thoughts would be just that is stop. Just stop. Go see a professional. You know, stop thinking that talking to your friend who is echoing a lot of what you're saying and making you feel good when you walk away from that conversation doesn't mean it's helping. Stop. Because I've had plenty of conversations where, that guy that goes into the area complaining about his wife, he's going to feel so good walking out of there. Because everybody just agrees with you. Yeah. He's going to feel very empowered. Stop. If you're feeling empowered, you're probably doing something wrong.
Right.
Because, no matter what conflict arose, no matter what issue, you got a role to play.
Right.
And if somebody's not helping you see the role that you played, you're talking to the wrong person.
Right.
So spend the time, go find somebody who is trained to help you see the role that you played and how to cope with somebody else who's doing something around you. I would say that. Professionals, man, you got to. You're going to do it anyways. Go find somebody who can help you for real.
Right. Well, I like it. You're absolutely right. You know, in dealing with such a complicated issue, I think we need to respect the issue. I think we need to respect this as a disease. I think we need to respect this as a lifelong deal. And, when you're dealing with a disease, unfortunately, we do have to put a lot of trust in our medical community. And let's stop fighting the medical community, but instead, let's educate them. Let's give them good information. Let's utilize what they've given us so far and show them what those pitfalls are, what those issues may be. Yeah. We got to be part of that solution. We can't just let them do research without us, and we can't just ignore them and think that we're ever going to find a cure for cancer by not using the medical community.
Yeah,
you're never going to find a cure for any disease without using them. You got to trust the medical community. We got to use them.
Yeah. You know what else we can't ignore?
What?
We can't ignore Retreat Premier Addiction Treatment Centers.
Right.
We can't ignore Journey Pure.
It's time to go.
Yeah, it is time to go.
All right.
But we can't ignore any of those either.
All right. So, adios, amigos. It's time for a taco. Goodbye.
And that was without even a single drop of rum.
Thank you. I'll be here all week.
He really grows on you, doesn't he?